My grandparents on both sides came over from Russia and from Poland. My mom's side from Russia, my dad's side from Poland. And around 1909, my grandfather on my dad's side established a funeral home in Passaic, New Jersey, and went on to, he passed away in 1954, during which time my father had gone and gone to work with him and built it up into a couple of locations, and the business still exists today, and it's 100 years. My father was a glider pilot in World War II, and he didn't talk too much about it, but when he did, my understanding was that when I read about them, that 70% of those guys didn't come back. And he told me about an incident that had occurred when the tow plane that was towing the glider got shot down, and there were 13 men in a Jeep in the glider, and he had to go into a steep dive, and it was in Belgium, and he flew over the hedgerows until they lost enough speed to actually put the glider down. And when they put the glider down, they saw a tank directly in front of them hidden in the hedgerows, and they thought that that was it, but it was a British tank that had just wiped out a German machine gun nest from 5 minutes before. So he did make it back and had me, and he wound up with an air medal as a result of that. So it was something pretty impressive if you ever see what those gliders look like. He was a Grand Marshal for 1 year. I don't remember what year that was. I believe that was 1950, I believe it was 1954 or 55. I have to check the records on that. But it was, in the Polish community, it was considered a big honor because you were selected from people that were well-known or prominent or well-liked in the community. And of course, as a little kid, I didn't realize how much it really was, how much it meant to my father, until I grew up and I realized that this was a big thing, and that he was being honored by the community. And I marched with him when I was, I guess, 6 or 7 years old, and later on I got to do it myself. And he was, my father was in the parade. He drove the Miss Polonia in the parade in 1979 when I was the Grand Marshal, and this was just a few months before he passed away. So I was really glad that he got to see that. So basically, I was raised on the east side of Passaic in that during the 50s. Elementary school was Holy Rosary School. That was a Catholic grammar school. Incorporated kindergarten through 8th grade, and I was there for the whole time. And during that time, they had different activities. They had picnics and things like that. But it was above a church. It was above Holy Rosary Church. The school doesn't exist anymore. I think the offices of the Board of Education are up there now, and the church is still there and still on the east side of Passaic. High school was Pope Pius High School, Pope Pius 12th Diocesan High School. That was in Passaic also on the east side on 1st Street. And Pope Pius is no longer there either, but that was only a few blocks away from where I lived. So high school, I was a B average. I did pretty well, not outstanding, because I guess I didn't put my nose to the grindstone maybe as much as I could have, but then part of high school is learning how to get along with people as well, so you try to be a little well-rounded, and I think I maybe sometimes went a little overboard with that, but and ever since I can remember, it was always ascertained or preordained that I was going to go into the family business and be a funeral director. I was always interested in fishing, being around the water, any kind of water sports, swimming, diving, anything to do with being outdoors, sledding in the winter time. Didn't care for the cold weather too much. But I was always pretty much solitary. I was never much for team sports or anything like that. I was always pretty much by myself. The shore was something you always looked forward to. Everybody always wanted to get down to the beach, down to the shore, and I was fortunate enough to, my parents were fortunate enough, they worked very hard, and I remember them, when I was growing up, working 24 hours a day. They had this switchboard in the house and taking telephone calls, and my father going out to different affairs, different places, and meeting with different people, and the shore was always a kind of a getaway. And I know I was fortunate enough to spend summers there from the late 50s until late 60s at a summer home that my father had built from the late 1950s. Before all of that, before the house at Laurel Harbor down in Lenoka Harbor, New Jersey, I would always be out with my father fishing. He had an old boat, an old Paradise skiff, and it was nicknamed the Scow. And we would go out fishing on the Scow. And when he finally built the home in Laurel Harbor, I think we got to know a lot of people down there, and they harassed him enough so that he bought himself a boat that was a little nicer, and it was a little 23-foot Trojan with, he bought that boat brand new. He treated himself, I guess. He felt like maybe he could reward himself a little bit after a lot of hard work. And at that time, he knew that I knew enough about the water, knew enough about boats, where he even bought me a little boat. It was a little 14-foot boat with an outboard motor, and we met the kids of a bunch of families that also had summer homes down there, and I guess there was about a dozen of us, and we had a lot of adventures down there. A lot of the guys that are still my friends today taught me everything I knew about boats in the water, and they kind of adopted me because I was the youngest one. I was the littlest kid. So not all of them are here anymore, unfortunately, but a lot of them are, and it's good to have those friendships for that period of time. I have no criminal history. I've never been involved in any sort of schemes or anything that would end me up. That would end me up in prison or in jail. Oh, okay. No, I've never been involved in activities that would get me arrested or get me in trouble with the law. In fact, at one point I was, and if you reviewed some of the letters, I was a special deputy sheriff as well with Eddie Engelhardt, who was the sheriff of Passaic County. It was an honorary thing.